Years later, the ending of How I Met Your Mother still feels like a gut punch. We hated it because we were promised destiny, but what we actually got was something much darker. But what if the darkness was the point of the writers after all? Psychologically, Ted and Tracy weren't about the one. They were a story about timing and grief. They weren't two people who met in a perfect life. They were two people who met at the exact emotional moment they could finally understand love again, after losing everything. And if that's true, maybe the real question isn't whether they should have ended up together. It's what their story was really trying to teach us about the courage it takes to find a happy ending in the real world. This is probably one of the most disappointing endings in sitcom history. Yet today, let's try to look at this through a different lens. Let's go back to the beginning. Season 1 Ted is obsessive. He's the guy who steals a blue French horn on the first date, who says "I love you" too soon, who builds this fantasy version of Robin in his head and convinces himself she's the one. That's not love. That's limerence, the psychological term for obsession disguised as romance. It's intoxicating, it's dramatic, and it's completely unsustainable. Compare that to the man standing on the train platform in Farhampton. No grand gestures, no desperate declarations, just a guy holding an umbrella, meeting a woman in the rain, and realizing, oh, and there she is. The difference? Ted finally became someone ready for love. He didn't need a destiny to save him anymore. And the thing about Tracy, she didn't fix Ted. She didn't complete him like some missing puzzle piece. She was the person who showed up after Ted had done the work, after he'd let go of the fantasy, after he'd grown up. Their relationship feels quieter than the Robin years, and that's the point. It's not fireworks and chaos, it's stability. Partnership. The kind of love that doesn't make good TV drama because it's healthy. But here's where it gets deeper. Tracy wasn't just Ted's second chance at love. Ted was also hers. There is a detail in Tracy's story that's arguably the most important piece of the puzzle. Before Ted, there was Max. They were in love. They were going to build a life together. But Max died. Tracy spent years believing that you only get one great love. She got her shot, and now he's gone. And when we meet her in the show, she's still carrying that grief, but she's learned to live with it. And if you look closely, it's a perfect, painful mirror to the man Ted would eventually become. Ted and Tracy weren't just two people who happened to like the same things. They were two people who had both stared into the abyss of loss and decided to keep walking anyway. They understood something most people their age didn't, that love isn't about finding someone who erases your past. It's about finding someone who honors it. That's why their connection feels so easy, so natural. They didn't need to perform for each other anymore. They'd both already survived the worst thing that could happen. And here's the gut-wrenching part. Eventually, they knew it wouldn't last forever. Not because they were pessimistic, but because they both already lost someone. They understood that mortality is the price you pay for love. Think back to the 45 Days speech in Season 8, The Time Travelers. Ted is sitting alone, realizing all his friends are moving on, and he imagines running to Tracy's apartment just to have 45 more days with her before they meet. We thought it was just Ted being a hopeless romantic, but looking back, that speech changes completely. It's a man screaming into the void of the future. He's already grieving a woman he hasn't even met yet because he knows that time is the one thing he can't win against. Beneath this speech is an idea known as finitude, the realization that our time with the people we love has a hard boundary. Ted wasn't just asking for romance, he was asking for a shared life. He knew, even then, that every second with Tracy was borrowed time. They lived with an awareness that most of us try to ignore, that time is limited, and that's why they didn't waste it. But what do you do with that borrowed time once you finally get it? Most stories end at the wedding. The screen fades to black, the music swells, and we're left with a happily ever after snapshot, frozen in time, perfect and untouchable. But How I Met Your Mother was never interested in the snapshot. It was obsessed with the long, messy, unpredictable anatomy of a whole life. It dared to show us that a happy ending isn't a static point you reach. It's the collection of years, the mundane Tuesdays, and the quiet tragedies that happen after the music stops. If we pause the story in 2024, Ted has his victory. He has the umbrella, the house, the kids, and the woman who finally spoke the quiet language of his soul. But by forcing us to look at 2030, the show refuses to let us stay in the fairy tale. It insists on the reality that the most profound love stories eventually have to face the silence. This shift transforms their love from a trope into something devastatingly human. It reminds us that mortality doesn't cancel out the depth of a connection. But the hardest pill to swallow is that Tracy wasn't the end of Ted's book. She was the most beautiful chapter in it. The writers chose to expose the reality of the anatomy of a whole life, that eventually the happily ever after ends, and you're left standing in the quiet, wondering if you have the strength to start the next sentence. And maybe that's the hardest truth the show was trying to tell us all along. The full circle reality that life doesn't give you a destination, it gives you chapters. When Ted tells the story in 2030, we have to ask, is he going backward? Or is he doing something much more complicated? Is he trying to make sense of how a life can contain more than one great love, without one erasing the other? Robin mattered to Ted because she represented possibility, a version of himself that was still becoming someone. Tracy mattered because she met him after he had already become someone. That difference changes everything. By the time we reach the end, Ted is no longer the man trying to complete a story. He's the man trying to understand it. That's where the finale starts to feel less like a twist and more like acceptance. Not that everything was meant to end a certain way, but that life doesn't stop rewriting us just because we think we've finished a chapter. People change. Grief changes them. Time changes them. And sometimes, what feels like starting over is actually just continuing forward in a different shape. So yeah, the ending still hurts, deeply hurt. But maybe it hurts for a reason, because it refuses to treat love as something that protects us from reality. Instead, it shows love as something that exists inside reality. Fragile, temporary, meaningful anyway. And maybe that's what we were actually watching all along. Not a story about finding the one person who completes you, but a story about how many versions of yourself you can become while still choosing to love. If this hits you differently now, drop a comment. Let me know if you've changed your mind, or if you still think they got it wrong. And together, let's try to explore the reasons behind the ending in different lenses. Thanks for paying attention. I'll see you in the next one.